Hello, it's me. Okay, so I got a request to do a sci-fi specific episode on looking at the story grid aspects of genre conventions and obligatory scenes. So that's what we're going to do today. And in this one, I want to talk about those conventions and obligatory scenes, both as they are present in novels that were published last year, so I'm going very current, and then looking at how we can find all of these different things in another version of popular media, specifically Ex Machina. So if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert now. And then some other places you can look, TV shows and things where you can find different aspects that we will find in science fiction. Now, I am partial to robots and technology-specific science fiction. My particular novel has some of that. It also has climate crisis things in it. But if you're looking for alien stuff, I don't talk much about that in this video. I will try to kind of give you some things that relate, but if you want some information specifically on like alien extraterrestrial type science fiction, I find it pretty similar to what we see in like technology and with just a different perspective. So for example, in science fiction, when we look at technology, some of the major themes that we're looking at, and theme is really important, I feel, in science fiction, because that's why we write about the future and things that are changing, is because we're kind of asking what would happen if this were to occur? What are all the various consequences that could come from that? So like with robots, for example, or AI, something with its own consciousness, we're looking at the danger technology and artificial intelligence poses on the human race. Like, what are we going to do in the case of, technology taking over jobs? What are we going to do in the case of artificial intelligence taking over jobs or taking over the human race, for example? And what's great about sci-fi is we can go extreme and make it incredibly entertaining, but also thought-provoking. Some of my favorite novels were Brave New World and 1984. And it's because we looked at the extremes of what would happen if in those particular novels. And so some of the things we're going to look at include some of those themes, but also the conventions and obligatory scenes that readers expect to see, according to Story Grid, which is one of my favorite noveling resources, that readers expect to see in a science fiction novel. So if your goal as a writer is to get readers and have people enjoying your book, then this is what I am talking to. If your goal as a writer is to write for yourself, or to write something that is totally out of the box and original and maybe timeless and aspirational but hard to understand and interpret, but maybe influential, all of those different things might be different. They might not. A lot of influential, difficult to read stories have these elements in them, but a lot of people will shy away from using these elements and call them formulaic. And there is certain aspects to, writing that people enjoy reading about, right? If you want a cohesive story, and I will speak for US readers here because it's different in different parts of the world, and I'll speak for myself as well, I guess, and not everyone. But we are used to reading in a certain format, right? We have this rule of 3 here. Things that come in threes are what we're used to. 3 trial-fail cycles. 3 choices, 2 of them fail, the third one succeeds. These are things that we're used to seeing in our fiction. But in Asia, for example, it's 5. 5 is usually the number that you find throughout different fiction of, the same things. So when we look at how we want to give our readers an experience and if we want them to enjoy it, it is important to include these aspects in your novel. If you don't care about who reads your novel, then you don't have to worry about any of this, right? But I do, so I'm a nerd about it. I really want to write something that people enjoy reading. So I've studied these things for years and years. I recently got my master's degree in writing popular fiction from Seton Hill University. I am a dedicated nerd. So let's look into the sci-fi concepts of obligatory scenes and story conventions that people want to read about. And I'm going to use my phone because I took a ton of notes. So here we go. The different story conventions that people expect to see in a science fiction novel. And okay, side note again, sorry. Science fiction is, in my opinion, it's an overview genre, an umbrella genre, right? Because you can have science fiction romance, for example. Romance has very specific and formulaic things that readers expect to see in a traditional romance, regardless of if it's a sweet romance or a spicy romance. You know, those elements can vary, but readers expect to have a happily ever after, for example. They expect to have a meet cute. There are a lot of things in those stories that readers want to see in order for it to be a satisfying story. Now, it can be set in a science fiction world and still have that romance. And in fact, a lot of readers expect the, subplot of many stories to have a romantic element or something else involved, a mystery. But science fiction can be paired with so many things to just amp it up a little bit. And so readers who are interested in science fiction are often interested in other genres as well as part of this world, right? Similar with fantasy. You can have a mystery and a romance and all these different things that happen within a fantasy, but the world itself and the elements that you use are what make it fantasy. So with sci-fi, the world itself and the elements you use are what make it science fiction. And so the first thing that we look at for science fiction in terms of conventions is an advanced technology or a futuristic setting, right? Obviously, it's not science fiction if it doesn't have that. And that's going to be true for all of these, actually. Exploration of a scientific concept. So when we look at different questions, this is the what if. What if robots took over the human race? This is the exploration of that scientific concept and getting into the nitty-gritty of what makes that occur, right? Why did they take over? What exactly is this technology? What caused it to happen? We also have a conflict involving humans and technology or aliens, right? So the conflict itself has to be with something that's interesting. And it can be with other human beings, right? Over what to do about this specific technology. But the bigger conflict also needs to involve that technology. If there's a certain weapon that we've created and multiple people have it, the conflict is how are we going to use this weapon, right? How are we going to fight against this weapon? For this specific one, maybe conflict with the robots or the aliens that are coming to visit Earth, right? Number 4 is ethical dilemmas related to science and progress. So this is part of the theme that we're looking at. Are we going to meet the aliens with malice, or are we going to welcome them? What are the consequences of both of those? Are we going to, create this artificial intelligence that could potentially take over, or are we going to just not create some progress, right? Number 5 is speculation about the future. So speculation about the future includes the different outcomes of that what if question. What if we created sentient robots in order to take over the minutia of our day-to-day life? All right, let's speculate about the future. What are the consequences of that? What could potentially happen? Let's go to the extreme, right? We talked about extreme before. So speculation about the future in science fiction tends to waver to the most extreme aspect of what could potentially happen. So those are the conventions that we're looking at today. Now, with different types of stories, those conventions can change a little bit, right? If you've got an alien story, you're going to expect to see multiple different things about the spaceship technology, or maybe even going to different worlds, right? A space opera, a specific type of science fiction, includes multiple worlds. So you cannot just have a space opera set on Earth. You've got to hop between all the different planets and explore space and things like that. So if we get into the nitty-gritty of different types of science fiction, It does include more and more conventions and obligatory scenes and things, but as an overview, this is what people expect to see in a science fiction novel. Let's look at the obligatory scenes. Okay, so the first obligatory scene is the introduction of the futuristic setting in a technology. In the novel Hum by Helen Phillips, which was published in 2024, it's set in a near future society dominated by humanoid robots known as Hums, and it explores the impact of advanced technology on employment and personal identity. Now, in an obligatory scene with that book, we see the novel open depicting a society where humanoid robots, or the Hums, have become integrated to daily life, setting the stage for exploring their impact on human employment and relationships. So right there, we see in the opening scene what's exactly going on, the technology at work in the lives of these humans in a futuristic setting. When we look at number 2 of obligatory scenes, it's the inciting event that's involving a scientific concept. So we're here for science fiction. The inciting incident is what sets off the conflict. In Playground by Richard Powers, which was published in 2024, this novel delves into artificial intelligence and oceanography, intertwining themes of technology advancement and ecological impact. So in the inciting incident of Playground, we see the protagonist's development of a groundbreaking AI system that serves as the catalyst to an ensuing event. And it raises questions on the ethical use of technology. I am trying to specifically avoid spoilers for these books because they were published so recently. I do highly recommend you go and check them out. They are all very good reads. Number 3 on the obligatory scenes is the protagonist's initial attempt to solve the problem. So we talked about trifail cycles, right? In terms of like the US likes to read things in threes, or the Western readers like to read things in threes. This is that trifail cycle, that first attempt, and it's going to not end well, right? So in Extremophile by Ian Green, published 2024, it's set in a climate-ravaged near-future London, and the story follows a biohacker entangled with eco-terrorists, and it highlights the tension between humanity and technological interventions in the environment. So in Extremophile, the biohacker protagonist initially engages in underground activities, attempting to address the environmental degradation through radical technological means. So their first try to solve the problem is often the wrong way to solve the problem, right? And we can get more into this if we talk story structure, and if you're interested in that, let me know. But when a protagonist goes through, that first try has got to be the wrong way, and as they figure out, then the next try is somewhere in between, and the final try is the right way. And that right way is often the thing that character flaw that they're struggling against, that they need to resolve in order to become a better person, a better friend, a better partner, whatever the goal is for that character arc. All right, number 4 for the obligatory scenes is the climax involving a critical decision about technology. So in If You Go by Alice Robinson, published 2024, this novel explores the ethical implications of cryogenic technology, focusing on personal identity and the concept of second chances in life. So in If You Go, we see the protagonist facing a pivotal choice about the use of cryogenic technology and weighing the moral implications of altering one's fate. So this is that ethical decision within the climax, right? This is the whole point of the book here in terms of theme, is should you alter your fate and extend your life? Should you use this technology? Is it good? Is it bad? That's not the question here. It's what are the consequences, and should you do it? If you make this choice, is this the right choice for you, or is this the right choice for humanity as a whole? Who's to say? A lot of sci-fi books, the reason I really like them is because they don't necessarily end with an answer or a specific resolution. They end with another question. With all the information you've just received from this novel, what's the right answer? Or what's your right answer, right? So it makes it so interesting. It's often an open-ended kind of relation to the theme. All right, number 5, the final obligatory scene that we're going to go over today is resolution that reflects on the implications of the scientific concept. So when we look at The Cautious Traveler's Guide to the Wastelands by Sarah Brooks, published 2024, We see a steampunk fantasy set aboard the Great Trans-Siberian Express, envisioning a future where passengers confront madness and seek redemption in a transformed world. And so in the resolution, like the implications of the scientific concept, we see that the conclusion offers, and I'm not going to give spoilers, but the conclusion offers a reflection about humanity's adaptability and the consequences of technological advancements in a reimagined future, right? So if the world is completely frosted over and we all have to live on these Trans-Siberian trains, what happens then when people are enclosed all together, when resources are scarce? You know, this is how we resolve, is what happens next, and is this going to be the right answer for humanity if this is a potential consequence or extreme that could be the outcome. And so those are the obligatory scenes and conventions. I do want to look at them as a whole in terms of Ex Machina, which came out in 2015, one of my favorite movies. So in the conventions, we see advanced technology or futuristic setting. It's set in a secluded high-tech research facility, and they're using that cutting-edge AI experiment to tell the story, right? And we see them the exploration of the scientific concept in how they explore artificial intelligence and consciousness and the boundaries of human and machine, some of my favorite things. The conflict involving humans and technology is the conflict revolving around AI, or Ava in this case, and the humans that interact with her. The question whether technology can be truly controlled or trusted. So this is kind of the conflict there. Can they trust Ava? Can they control Ava? And then kind of getting into the sci-fi open-ended questions there. Should they control Ava, right? But I won't get ahead of myself. Number 4, the ethical dilemma related to science and progress is the ethical implication of creating a sentient AI and exploiting it, right? The morality of playing God are some of the central themes here. Number 5, we see the speculation about the future. So this raises questions about the trajectory of AI development and its potential consequences on humanity. So we're facing some of that even today, right? Not to this extreme, but again, science fiction explores the extreme, and so we're seeing the questions raised about the development of AI. Now, in the obligatory scenes, Ex Machina introduces this futuristic world with Caleb arriving at Nathan's ultra-modern AI research facility, and it introduces the viewer to the advanced technology and the isolated environment in which this will take place. The inciting incident involves the scientific concept of Caleb, who's invited to conduct a Turing test on Ava and question her to see how advanced she is, how much consciousness she might have. All right, number 4 in the obligatory scenes is the climax, involving a critical decision about the technology. So in the climax, we see Caleb deciding to help Ava escape because he's decided that she has a consciousness and she's an oppressed being in this world. And we see it backfire tragically. In this case, it's not really a tri-fail cycle. There are small tri-fail things they do, but the overall goal is the same. The thing he's trying to do is to save Ava. So it's the same concept throughout, and it ends very badly for Caleb. From a story structure perspective, what that tells me is that Caleb wasn't the protagonist, right? Ava was. Ava is actually the protagonist of this story because we're following her journey throughout, and so when she makes it through, we're actually more interested in what happens to her than what happens to Caleb. And then the final obligatory scene is the resolution, and it reflects on the implications of that scientific concept, the AI, the consciousness, Ava as is she human, is she machine, is she somewhere in between? And it concludes with her escaping and blending into the human world. So as an audience, then you reflect on the consequences of creating a sentient AI, and then the dangers of underestimating it too, right? They tried to control her, but ultimately they were unsuccessful. She got out. What are the implications of that to us as viewers? What do you think about it? So that's mainly what I wanted to talk about. There are other resources out there, some interesting things you could look at for kind of a shorter masterclass on how this works is if you look at Black Mirror and some of the episodes there. White Christmas in particular explores AI, consciousness, and ethical dilemmas. Episode Metalhead, it looks at humans versus technology in a dystopian future. And then Hated in the Nation shows some ethical dilemmas of technology gone wrong. So those are all the obligatory scenes, conventions of science fiction as a broad genre. And then looking at it from a movie perspective, so that if you don't have time to read through all the different books that I listed, watching Ex Machina is a pretty good masterclass on an overall science fiction. And then looking at some of those episodes of Black Mirror will give you a taste, a snapshot of some of the other parts. So if you're interested in delving deeper into science fiction, let me know. If there are other genres that I haven't yet covered that you'd like to hear about, let me know. And if you have any questions, drop them down in the comments. Otherwise, like and subscribe so that you can get a notification whenever I drop the next video, and I'll see you soon. Bye!